This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski,
featuring retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer.
Defense attorney Ann Taylor having some issues that the FBI visited one of their defense expert witnesses for the defense recently, Ms. Vargas, shortly after the genealogy expert testified in court for Kohberger. It's just bizarre. Why was it the FBI that had to make the visit to her? Why would it not have been local law enforcement or something of that nature? Why the FBI going to talk to her? Is it a sign of the severity and the ginormousness of this case? Bill Thompson is the one who asked the FBI to go and try and make sense of why she was recanting her statements to begin with.
Well, we've just kind of gone full circle, Tony, right? We have a clerk that was interviewed after the fact, and now there's some very egregious and disturbing allegations in the Murdaugh case. And now we have really other similar type allegations in this, and that is that someone did not or signed something that they didn't either read or believe in. They're changing their testimony and their story. This is sworn testimony that is very important in making judicial decisions about somebody's guilt or innocence. And so it just doesn't get really much heavier or more important than that. And the reason the FBI was called, I believe, is we know that there were 60 full-time agents assigned to this case. That's a lot, I can tell you. To be pulled off of, some of these agents might have up to 50 cases on their own, each of them. That's their casework that's now just being shelved. Other cases that are important, that need warrants, that need arrests, blah, blah. So they were at really, and I've said this from the beginning, even though obviously Chief Fry was the head of the whole case due to venue and so on. But if you look at really who did the lion's share of that work, it was the FBI.
Yeah.
It was their analysts. It was their investigators. So they know firsthand what was said. They know so much about the case. You know, the Moscow Police Department is small, and they have only so many investigators. So I think that's the biggest reason why they asked for the Bureau to go back out and conduct these additional interviews.
How difficult is it for a case to go from start to finish, whatever that verdict may end up being, flawlessly? And I guess that maybe be the wrong term, but without a lot of error. There's always going to be human error here and there. But when you have such a high profile case like this, and you have people basically, just chomping at the bit to convict someone that looks extremely guilty, like it does in this case, for them to overstep their bounds and to do things and say things that are going to represent the defendant in a very negative light, when maybe there's already enough to make them look negative. Why add to it, just as we're now learning about in the Murdaugh situation as well?
Well, I don't think it's really a matter of adding to it. I think the positive thing about having a case that's really in the limelight, like we see in both of these cases that are being watched by the media, that are being watched so closely by everyone in these agencies, because they don't want a flaw, is you have a greater respect for detail and really looking at every word that's written, every document that's filed with a fine-tooth comb. And that's kind of a positive. Ms. Vargas does not want to be on record not saying something she believes.
Yeah.
And whether she made a mistake, people do, they sign contracts without reading every word.
Sure.
Whether that was the case, even though that shouldn't have ever been done, but was it done? She wants to go back and make sure it's clear what her professional opinion is. And if she didn't tell the truth, the prosecution wants that documented.
Now, how would that actually affect the case? Because this is obviously, these are the motions. There's no jurors involved yet. If it turns out that Ms. Vargas' testimony is something that she does want to recant officially, or that it was inaccurate, wouldn't that just be struck from the record? Does it really play a role in the actual trial and determination of guilt or innocence of Kohberger?
Well, it doesn't, but remember, she was called as an expert, so she could be used in the future in the trial to provide expert testimony regarding the genetic genealogy and the DNA. So when you look at it from that standpoint, it's very important for the judge and the court and all players to understand her position, because she could be called to testify again at trial. So it is important to have the record set straight. But in terms of overturning anything or really changing the decisions of the judge, not necessarily. But let's look at this question. My question would be, why? Why didn't she read it? Or did she read it and really thought she signed something that said X when it ended up saying Z? I want to know all those details. If this is a true expert witness, she knows better than to sign anything that she hasn't fully read or that she herself wrote.
Yeah.
So I want to know why all of this really happened.
Yeah.
Was it remiss on her part, or is it deeper than that?
One more on Kohberger. Who do you think is having the issue with his fly more? Himself, because people are focusing on his crotch and he's just that insecure kind of guy? Or do you think it's Ann Taylor going, hey, here's an opportunity to raise another issue about cameras?
Ann Taylor, I truly believe Ann Taylor is going to grasp at any possible straw to keep cameras out. She's going to be looking at everything. I mean, just the fact that she spent tens of thousands, I would say, based on what I know experts charge and how much time those charts and documents take to make, and on trying to keep them out in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, so this gave her an opportunity, even though if you really look what really happened, obviously it was somebody on Twitter that just focused in on that and then showed the photo, but she's making it into so much more than that. But I would not be surprised at all, Tony, if cameras aren't allowed.
You're locked into the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.